Hello, fermented folks, and welcome to our live stream of Fermented Fiction, where we discuss all things books, movies, and genre fiction through the lens of debate, alcohol consumption, and generally good conversation. Today, we are talking to the wonderful Shiv Ramdas. Did I say your name correctly? I'm sorry if I butchered it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah. Who is an author. We're going to have him introduce himself in just a second. But I am Travis Vermolem, one of the hosts of tonight. And we usually start with some quick updates. So I'll give you a really quick one, and then we'll launch into everybody else. And we'll end with Shiv so he can tell you a little bit about himself and update you on anything going on in his life. So my update is, man, this is the one thing I didn't come super prepared for, but you know what? I just finished first quarter of my second year of teaching, and everyone tells you the first year is the hardest, but our school's kind of got a weird situation where we have to restart the high school from ground one this year. So this is basically like a second to first year, and this first quarter was probably the hardest of all 5 I've had so far. Really rewarding, but also just like super difficult because I'm trying to catch my feet with the new curriculum. And last year I got to build my own curriculum, and I was completely like freewheeling it. And this year I have to like go off of the curriculum that we've adapted, and that's a little harder because to teach what other people have made is a bit more of a struggle for me. So, but we just finished successfully, and my kids are great. I have, minor problems, nothing that I hear about some other schools having. And so I'm just thankful that I'm at the place I'm at. Yeah, that's my update. Clay, how are things going for you?
I got hired to write a movie, so that's pretty exciting.
Nice.
What? Get out.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's a film company, a group I've worked with. Well, yeah, obviously. I didn't think
it's where everybody starts.
That used to go without saying, Colin. It's with a company, Itchy Rodent Films in Seattle. I've worked with them for a few years. They do documentaries and biopics. This will be a biopic. I can't really talk about it too much more than that at the moment, but I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be really cool. It's an awesome story. I just did like a 6-hour interview with the guys, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be Clayton Vermolem, events runner, author, screenwriter. You're going to have another little comma to add there. Love it. Jeremy.
Board member. There's a lot more.
Board member. Yeah. Jeremy.
Me. Oh, me. What I got? Well, since the last time we recorded, I now have another niece, so that's pretty exciting. Yes.
Congratulations to your brother, sister.
My brother.
Yeah.
I am the youngest of 5 brothers.
Right on.
So that's fun. So yes, another niece. So that's pretty good. And yeah. One more Hudson roaming free on this earth.
Keep them coming.
Keep them coming.
Everyone.
All right, Colin, what you got?
Well, I am doing finals coming up. I really only have I'd say 10 months left of X-ray programming, X-ray work as a student before I do the real thing, which is ironic because basically I have a tiny bit of school time and then a whole bunch of full time taking X-rays of people. And so it's like, I just don't get paid for doing the job with all of these paid people who do it. So that's good times. And then my fantasy team, I won my fantasy football last season. Guess how I'm doing this season?
1-5, 1-8, or whatever it is at this point.
Oh, I'm pretty good. 2-7.
All right.
Dang.
Okay.
Just for anyone who
underestimate you,
any sports fans listening, Clayton and I are actually going against each other this week, and it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight. I have a 54% chance of winning, but that low of margin, like it could shift anytime. And my boy, what's his name? Now I'm forgetting names. Anyway, my running back that always gets me like 30 points only got 17 this time. So I'm a little worried. Derrick Henry, he didn't do as good as he usually does. But we'll see. All right.
The important thing is that I had Olave, and he got a concussion twice. He got a concussion again in like the first play that I put him back in. I've had him all season. I also have Dak Prescott. He's out.
He's gone.
At one point this season, there were so many injured NFL players. I had a whole team of injured players on my team, on my bench, and my team. So that's how that's going. Which
making a lot of excuses for those 2 losses, Colin.
It is funny. Every Tuesday at work, we all talk about it, about how awful fantasy football is.
That's right.
And one of my coworkers wants to quit it so bad. He's like, I yelled at my kids the other day. I was so upset with my fantasy team. I should really quit.
Yeah. I play Survivor and so this is what I did. This year, week 1, I was like, I picked 3 different teams in week 1. Because I'm like, that's what you do, right? You diversify your risk. And then I went 0-3 in week 1. So I'm done.
Calling it.
Yeah. And then I had Joe Burrow, who I think I don't know, he got injured in week 1. So in fantasy, I get it's a sudden death league. So 2 of those I'm done. So I was literally done with all football gaming at 4 p.m. Pacific in week 1.
Oh my goodness.
That's brutal.
Well,
so I'm free for the year.
I'm sorry. And with that, Shiv, could you introduce yourself to our audience as our guest and please tell us any updates other than your poor fantasy league update?
But sounds like there are no
updates. It's now week 10. It's been 9 weeks of death. I write science fiction, fantasy, horror, humor. I've written short fiction. I'm currently working on my 2nd novel. What else is there to say? I post on the internet some of the time.
What's your 2nd novel about, Shiv?
Oh, it's actually a sequel to a short story I did a little while ago. It's about this fraudulent paranormal detective who accidentally gets a real case.
Right.
Very good.
Shenanigans that ensue, and it's essentially this attempt to write a grand unified theory of Indian cryptozoology.
Cool.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice. Are there any particular paranormal elements that you're centering around that you could give us a hint about?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of stuff that's real. We're gonna talk hidden treasure. We're gonna talk history. We're gonna talk a ghost village that everyone entirely just disappeared overnight. We're gonna talk about a guy who died in an accident, but his motorcycle still haunts the highway.
Ooh,
cool.
A bunch of cool stuff. India's got some really, really cool legends to work with.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I love that. Well, all right. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. Now we're going to get into the protein of the forced enrollment, which is the main segment of our show, and it is all about debate. So Shiv has generously agreed to debate our own Jeremy Hudson about the 3rd book in a very beloved series. Whether or not we decide we like it, we will let you know after the debate. But the beloved series is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book series, and number 3 is titled Life, the Universe, and Everything. It comes on the heels of The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. So this is a very, as I said, beloved comedy science fiction series. I will hold any of my true opinions for after the debate, and so will Jeremy and Shiv. But they're going to roll some dice, 20-sided dice. Whoever rolls low is going to have to attack life, the universe, and everything. And whoever rolls high is going to have to defend life, the universe, and everything. So
excellent.
I have your 10-minute timer. If you two are ready to roll, and give me your numbers. Let's hear it.
All right. Let's go.
I don't have dice, so great.
Could someone roll for? I can roll.
Someone roll for.
Someone roll on his behalf, and not gonna spoil my numbers.
Someone roll with a $40 set of dice.
I got it.
I don't know if you want Travis rolling for you.
What'd you get, Jeremy?
I got a 5.
Nice.
Shiv, you got a 14. So you are.
Dang.
Hey.
Shiv.
Nice.
When I roll for other people, I do just fine.
Yeah.
That's true. It's the
You should
DM
roll on
curse.
people's behalf. Why didn't you roll on my behalf, Travis? What's the matter with you?
I don't know. All right.
Hmm.
That means, Shiv, you're going to start out. We always have our positive start the debate. And just so you know, because some of our guests maybe aren't familiar, this 10 minutes is general. So you make your opening statements, but we're not going to tell you when to transition or not. Just try and be respectful of your opponent. Okay, both of you.
Yeah.
Make it a clean
Fine.
fight.
But like,
10 minutes is for both of you.
are we back and forthing? Are we monologuing? How's it working?
You're
Back and forth.
Back and
Yep.
forth.
Back and forth. You know, you get your turn, I take my turn, and then we could do it back and forth. It's gonna be great.
You get to start though, Shiv, because you rolled high.
So don't filibuster.
Okay, so
Don't
then,
fill
like,
any busters.
so,
All right.
so I'm just going to talk about the book, and you can respond whenever you want to respond. I think that might be
Exactly.
So
Very well.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's a great book, right? Like, do I need to say anything else?
I mean, you could
No, no, it's
if you
great.
wanted to.
Like, why are we pretending? Like, you rolled a dice, you got a bad draw in life. You got to now pretend you don't like this book.
Who's to say I'm pretending? This book, I'll tell you about this book, right? So it is bananas beginning to end, and it ends like a flippin' Doctor Who episode where turns out nothing was really gonna happen anyway.
No, you rolled low, right?
Yes, I did
Give
roll
me a really
lower.
good case for the book right now.
I mean, if you say so. The number of random tangents and like just things that don't really go anywhere are all over the place in this book. Arthur Dent learns how to fly, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It doesn't doesn't really affect the climax of the book or anything, and there's just a lot of meandering about in this odd series of fetch quests that is this book.
If you hate fetch quest, you must be really anti-LOTR.
Well, the books, but that's a different debate
Okay.
that I will
Well,
have with Travis later,
have you
and
watched
maybe
it?
even later this episode.
This particular book has got some of the coolest, funny, satirical foreshadowing you'll see in any book or anything that Douglas Adams ever did. Do you remember that character? What's his name? Wow Bagger. Do you remember Wow Bagger? I think he's called Wow Bagger the Infinitely Prolonged.
Yep.
So,
Yep, that guy.
another character, he's this alien. I think he's fairly indeterminate. They don't actually tell us his species or whatever it is. But for whatever combination of reasons, this guy is immortal. And after a point, he's done so much in life, he's so jaded that he decides that he hates the universe. And he's decided to deal with it by individually insulting every single living being in the universe one by one. So he looks
In
them up
alphabetical order.
in alphabetical order. Thank you. He looks them up. He travels to them. He has a supercomputer that helps him work out an insult tailored to each individual in the universe. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wonderful foreshadowing for the main A plot of the book, which is about a group of people who live on a planet which is surrounded by this cloud, which is a supercomputer. And when the cloud clears, they realize the universe all around them. And because they're super xenophobic, they're okay, we hate everybody. Let's just kill the rest of the universe.
Yeah. Okay, look. That's all well and good for setup, but as far as foreshadowing, kind of, I guess, it's still a plot that, it shows up. The immortal dickhead is just a plot point that shows up at the beginning and it shows up at the end, and he's like, oh, well, I'm not actually supposed to be here anyway. I already got you. And then he just
I mean, there's time travel.
yeah, because that's always the
there's
best thing to
absolute-
happen to a series.
There's an absolutely time travel is pretty cool in this book, though. There's a fantastic scene where he accidentally kills someone who travels back in time to pull him out of time to take revenge.
Yeah.
And then realizes that, no, I was supposed to kill you later, actually.
Yeah, so Arthur Dent is effectively immortal for the back half of the book, and that's pretty fun, I guess.
Adam's book, everyone's immortal, except the ones who are not.
I mean, I guess that's how that works.
Yeah, but like, but
Usually, anyway.
if you're comparing about random crazy elements, then like Douglas Adams is the wrong author, right? Like we're talking about a guy whose flagship book is like mice came up with a supercomputer, which was 42.
Yep, sure was.
Like it doesn't get more random than that.
You know, oh yeah, that reminds me. This does introduce an element where in just essentially saying that the setup from the first book, the answer to the ultimate question, will not have an answer. There's nothing that's going to pay that off.
Well, that's not exactly true. It said that the answer and the question cannot be found in the same universe.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not going to be a payoff to what the question even is. Which is, really good for a writer because now he does, well,
So wait,
God rest him.
you
Now
telling
he
me-
wouldn't have to think of what that could possibly be.
are you seriously telling me you think Douglas Adams couldn't do a parallel universe?
Who could say? I mean, if we're bringing in later books in the series, there's a lot of parallel universes just happening. He does go multiverse eventually, but we'll get there, I assume, one day.
And there he is. Thank you. He set you up with them. What do you think he was doing in book 3?
Just
Like,
getting his
book
head
2
stuck in a
ends with them saying,
bucket
let's
for
go
a
to the
while. I don't
restaurant
know.
at the end of the universe, and then book 3 is the restaurant at the end of the universe. Like, this guy likes to tell you what's coming.
He sure does. And what he has told us is coming is not the thing that he's been setting up since book 1. Let's sip on it.
I mean, I just don't know how to like.
I know, I'm so
I don't think
obstinate.
that's the question. I feel like if you're chasing 42, I feel like that's like the wrong question to be chasing across this series, in the sense that like that's not what these books are about, right?
Well, sure. It's about the journey, and when you realize
It's about
at
the
this
futility
point-
of the journey.
it's about the futility of the journey, and boy is it futile, especially knowing retroactively that Arthur Dent was never in any danger leading up to this point.
Let me ask you a philosophical question then.
Oh, delightful.
Suppose you were to spend a period of time doing a certain thing, let's say chatting with a bunch of friends, drinking a beer, and talking about a book. And at the
Can't
end of it
picture
all, you didn't do one thing you went in to do. All right. Would you be like, I had fun, but it was a waste of my time?
I wouldn't say that fun is a waste of my time, and you're asking probably exactly the right person. With my ADHD, that happens basically every episode unless I write things down. Woo. Haha. But there is a point to story, to being able to, like, for things to matter. That's important. Even when the point is that things don't matter.
No, the point is to make you have fun. Like, are you having fun in this journey?
Am I?
Are
I
you,
would dare say that I'm not, because of,
are you saying that because you rolled less than 14 on a d20?
well, clearly I am. Otherwise, I would be taking your position, sir. Sir.
Which is what I've been trying to say, right? Like, you're in this really, really unfortunate situation where you have to say something that you don't believe.
So long as I don't believe it. But no, look, I think there's plenty to gripe about, especially knowing that this began as like a Doctor Who, like a treatment for a Doctor Who special.
Yeah.
And that's just so much of the ending and the plot, and beautiful hair. Oh my God. But anyway, so much of that it just colors how I see the rest of the book. Yeah. It's like, Doctor Who, but it's different, guys.
It's like Doctor Who, but like it's a certain flavor of Doctor Who, right? Like it's not the kind of Doctor Who that you'd ever see in the reboot.
Yeah, it's like Doctor Who
Right.
if he
Like when was he writing?
tripped on
He was writing for
salvia
Tom-
most of the
Yeah,
time.
he was writing for Tom Baker, right?
I think so.
The fourth. Yeah, so that's a pretty goofy era in a lot of ways.
Yeah, hi.
It's not as
Oh my
goofy
God.
as fifth with the cricket ball and stuff, but it's pretty goofy. Speaking of cricket ball, we haven't even talked about the robots of cricket. Like,
I know. Yeah, we got so into the weeds. Yeah,
like if you
just
really
robots.
wanted to complain about the book, you could say that those robots are like an extraordinarily like tortured device. Like, and that is
don't worry, they certainly are. It's
they
killer
are like
robots
over the
going and
top, right? Like, but
exploding things, and yeah, it's great. I guess.
satire of a certain kind. It's like it's. I think it's like what's his name, Douglas Adams at his most PG Woodhouse. Like that entire whole cricket loop is in making fun, sort of making fun at upper class British society and their pastimes.
Well, yeah, it is pretty objectively the silliest sport we've got. I'm pretty sure.
Whoa.
Beer of the week.
Hey, that's beer of the
We
week.
live in a world where baseball exists.
Okay, baseball is just the most boring sport. I can't get drunk enough to watch baseball.
All right. Well, it's beer of the week. We're going to end on the cricket insults. Man, you really went for a home run there, Jeremy. Hey.
Thank you.
So our beer of the week segment is how we always interrupt the good old forced enrollment. We're going to start with, now we say beer of the week, but really it's fermented drink of the week because I'm a bit of a whiskey snob. So this whole season, I'm going to be bringing in a new bottle of the brown liquor to you. I'm going to start us off and then I'll transfer over to Clayton, who looks like he has his drink ready. My drink
And
this
like in
week,
previous seasons, you drink the whole thing.
100%, just pound the whole bottle.
Just
No.
slam it down.
My whiskey of the week is Yellowstone Select, a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey since 1872, named after the second best national park in Montana. And yes, I stand by that. Glacier is just a little bit better. And that's probably because I spent most of my life in Kalispell, but I'm biased. What can
It's
I say?
also a really bad TV show.
Yellowstone is. It's a terrible TV show. It's just, it's a Montana soap opera. I hate it.
The show
Um,
that does not exist about Glacier is far better than Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
studio,
Literally.
all you studio execs and Pedro Pascal, who's listening.
Yes,
right off
Pedro,
screen
please.
here.
Even if
Um,
it was a biopic of an actual glacier, it would be better than
It
Yellowstone.
would. So I'm calling to all studio execs as I drink my Yellowstone whiskey. Please, please do not make a Glacier TV show. I don't want to see it.
No,
Leave it
No.
alone.
leave it be.
Look,
We're good.
they're going to because
It's
of the
just a
success
live
of
stream.
Yellowstone.
In the park.
Yeah.
They're
You
gonna
want to
have
watch?
a different soap opera about every single national park. They're gonna keep beating that dead horse till it quits spitting out
It might be
money.
worse than the Marvel universe.
You say that, Jeremy, but like technically the like historical square in the middle of Philadelphia is a national park. So I'm
Let's
ready
go.
I'm ready to see that
Yeah.
soap opera about the
Yeah.
the guy that's like defending Independence Hall with his life.
Exactly.
Like 100%. All right, Clayton, what are you drinking?
All right. I went over to my local tap house in Squim and I got this one called Friendsgiving IPA from our friends at Bale Breaker. I think they're up in the Mount Vernon, Bellingham area. Or no, maybe they're out east. I can't remember exactly. And then this is a collaboration with Ballard Brewing. So Bale Breaker, Ballard, Friendsgiving IPA. We're gonna see how it goes. We've got 6.7% alcohol.
All right.
So yeah, that should get me ready to go.
Yeah.
Jeremy, what are you drinking for your debate?
Well, as in previous episodes on the Hitchhikers Guide, I busted out a bottle of bourbon. This is Blade and Bow. I was going to try and get something like referencing something, but then I found this bottle with a key on it, and I was like, hell yes, that's rad as hell, and I'm going to drink it.
Good pick. Blade and Bow's pretty good bourbon too. I don't mind
Indeed.
it as well.
Well, and I
Colin.
think that
Oh.
that decision-making process is definitely in line with Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah.
I was going to
Yep.
get something else and somehow
then I
ended up
saw
with this.
something shiny.
I saw something
100%.
dope as hell and I went for it. And
Yep.
yes, very Hitchhiker's Guide of me.
Colin,
No,
what are you drinking?
Well, I had to think about this one. But what I ended up with is that Douglas Adams spent most of his life in London, specifically the East London, East End. And so I got a Fuller's London Pride Outstanding Amber Ale. Voila.
Ooh.
All
Whoa.
Nice.
All right.
All right.
Which
That looks pretty good.
is Griffin Brewery, Chiswick Lane, South London.
That's quite the accent. Very
That,
Very accurate.
accurate is what
that was
we're
a
going to
choice.
say.
That was a choice. Shiv, last but not least, what are you drinking? Our
Well,
guest?
I originally thought I'd grab this thing called Gold Heart, which is like heart of gold, like kind of fits Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
But then I was like, the hell with it. I'm just
Perfect.
drinking Mango Heart because I like it better. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I got that, and it just felt more appropriate for like Douglas Adams. Like I was supposed to do this thing, but you know what? I'll just do this thing instead.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Cheers.
Everybody,
Cheers.
cheers to Douglas
Cheers.
Adams,
Hey,
to
yeah.
life, the universe, and everything.
And it's a Pedro.
And to Pedro. Which is quite good.
He's right here. He's actually walking the dog. What a helpful guy. Pedro Pascal, we love you.
Yeah, he's
Um,
so
Okay.
So, Colin, before we get into our open table discussion, I believe you have some fermented facts for us.
Your first fermented fact is I have a D20 pint glass that I bought at Emerald City Comic Con.
sick.
Okay.
Great fact.
That is, in
It's
fact,
right.
a fact.
Yeah.
Second fact, you should read the Life, the Universe, and Everything Wikipedia page, because if you thought the story was crazy, the Wikipedia page kind of sounds like it was written by someone who's a huge fan of the syntax of Douglas Adams. And I just thought it was made up. So this is the third book in the 6-volume science fiction trilogy,
That is what
as he
Douglas
liked to
Adams
call it.
called it.
Douglas Adams, yeah, as he called it.
He originally called it a trilogy in 4 parts. Then he added a 5th.
Hmm.
I think Owen Colfer did the last part after he died or something.
Yeah. So really, it's 5 books and 1 short story penned by Douglas Adams.
Oh, and Owen Colfer, he wrote the Artemis Fowl series, didn't he?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I think he's written the one called And Another Thing, which is
that is correct. I have it, and I couldn't finish reading it.
Oh, bummer.
Well,
Although that could have to do with more of like my reading attention span.
well, give us a couple more fermented facts there, Colin.
Yeah, Colin.
As Jeremy already mentioned, the story was originally outlined by Adams as a Doctor Who and the Cricket Men. So he literally wrote a story about cricket and cricket men and cricket playing death robots in order to sell it to the Doctor Who BBC, which who'd have thought that got rejected?
I don't know. I've
Or as
seen
they
pretty
say,
on brand.
never
I'm-
commissioned.
I have watched exactly 7 episodes of Doctor Who, and I'm sorry if any of you here are Doctor Who fans, but I'm not surprised because Doctor Who always strikes me as they have a lot of really wonderful ideas that they dumb down too much. And then the audience, I just never liked it. I never was a big Doctor Who. It never caught me. So I'm not surprised that this got rejected, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
Doctor Who's can be fun. You have to find the right doctor for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you now? Of course, imagining this as that seems absolutely insane, especially when you think about when he was writing it and wasn't so wildly popular. Although he was popular at that time. But you can actually find Doctor Who and the Cricket Men written by James Goss, which is like a book that's the Doctor Who version with cricket men. I don't know if the story's any good, but it was published in like 2018.
Oh,
So
okay.
someone did
All right.
pick it up.
Wow,
That's fun.
interesting.
The very strange thing about this book is it's the only one of his books to be censored. Specifically, it was censored in the US edition. Various curse words were swapped out with other words like knee biter and swat. There's also in the story, which is brilliant. Oh, by the way, when it comes to any of these Douglas Adams stories, I highly recommend you get the read by the author, which is now on YouTube. So you can just listen to Douglas Adams reading this book on YouTube. And one of the wonderful lines is, which contains an F-bomb. So use your earmuffs. The most gratuitous use of the word fuck in a serious screenplay. That was a line from the book, which is very funny aside.
Right.
And in the US edition, that was another thing that was censored. And Douglas Adams changed it to Belgium. So the sentence actually then read the most gratuitous use of the word Belgium in a serious screenplay, which is almost funnier.
It's definitely funnier.
And I guess I should see if I can find it, but there was like there was a digression as to Belgium was literally the most offensive thing in the universe to say.
Yeah.
And just not on Earth. And there was a big tangent in the book, the US edition, when it came out about that, which actually poked fun at the whole concept of censorship. So that's very on brand for Douglas Adams. Of course, he would spend a bunch of time, he couldn't just pick one word. He had to really dig into it.
And I am going to offer one correction to that fermented fact.
Oh,
it is not the only book in the series to be censored in any way. The first book, actually, when specifically when he was describing Vogon poetry, in the first edition, they said that the worst poetry in the universe died with its creator when the Earth was destroyed. In the original, it was a real name of an actual poet that lived in London. And he ended up having to change it for subsequent releases of the book.
That's amazing.
Although in my defense, Jeremy, Wikipedia says right here with a reference, this book is the only one in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series to have been censored in its US edition. So that was not a US edition.
I feel like you have a correction.
The really no, it's not a correction. Just like little addition. The really fun part about him naming that woman who was a poet in London is that when it came out, a lot of people were like, "What is his beef with this woman?" And it turns out he was like, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I randomly picked a woman's name out of the directory." And it turns out that there's an actual woman by this name writing this kind of poetry in London, which is why the self-censorship happened so quickly, because he was genuinely sorry.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That is awesome.
Probably sold more copies,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think she said something about that also. That I don't mind that he did this because I got a lot of interest in my work.
That's kind of it reminds me of the story of Seinfeld's Latvian Orthodox episode. They just they were trying to find a form of Christianity that wouldn't insult direct Christians, and they were like, well, what country probably doesn't have an Orthodox church? And they're like, probably Latvia. No one knows about Latvia. And they threw in that George was going to convert to Latvian Orthodox. And then a bishop of Latvia emailed them after and was like, thank you for bringing attention to our church. We're so happy that we have representation in the media. And Jerry was like, you're welcome. We didn't even know.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, people pay good money on Patreon these days to be included in books, in all sorts of ways.
Oh, yeah.
What is that a thing now? Damn.
Oh, for sure. Matt Denneman does that all the time in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, because he's got some pretty devout Patreon people, And he definitely throws them into books, and they get murdered. They become hookers,
remember
strippers.
that.
And they
So
pay
good.
it just like so that their name shows up and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, he does it right.
That's like a sweet gig. I should like ask some people if they want it.
You should.
I forgot to mention that Adam's Doctor Who and the Cricket Men was he wanted it to be a 6-part story. The 6
my God,
episodes
that'd be good.
dedicated to
He already
complete
did.
nonsense.
That would be incredible.
It would be the best.
He also did another one of like the more bizarre episodes that they have. Like it was the first, I think it was the first installment of the Key to Time. Like
He was a writer for Doctor
Pirate Planet, I
Yeah.
think it's called. And it's a weird one. Like I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of Key to Time. It has 6 parts, and Douglas Adams' part is by far the weakest.
Well, Colin, you got any more fermented facts? Or that almost seems like a perfect segue into
That's
what
it.
our opinions are. All right. Well, so now we're going to have our open table discussion, which will go as long as we want, as long as we're having fun and we're feeling like continuing to talk. So we're going to start with Jeremy. You
Yeah.
were the attacker, which means you get to tell us first, what do you actually think
Oh boy,
Yeah.
howdy.
the book?
This book, right? I love every like single sentence of this book. It's incredible. There's nothing I don't like about it. It's great. That's it. That's full stop. I love that it does an interesting thing with characters knowing their future that I don't think I've seen in any other story or any other medium where somebody's like, "Oh, I know something that's going to happen in my future. I am invincible. Like I know that I can't die because this thing hasn't happened yet." That's great. And just all the side bits, the random, like there's a joke that gets reused, and I love it when they go aboard the bistro math, where from the first book they were talking up the improbability drive. It's like you can get anywhere you want, and with all that mucking about in hyperspace, and then they get on the bistro math. And then they're like, you can get anywhere you want as fast as you like without all that mucking about and improbability. And it's... Look, I love everything about this book. I love Agrajag and his horrible statue and his murder form that he specifically chose to kill Arthur Dent. There's nothing I wouldn't love about rereading this book.
It even has like a special appearance by Marvin.
Mm-hmm.
They threw in
It's too
Marvin.
short. The problem is it's too short.
The book?
Yeah.
They're all really short. Like
They're
actually,
so short. What do you want, man?
like the first book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is 46,333 words. Like it doesn't even qualify as a novel by modern standards. It's a novella.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I do love the Marvin segue, just to piggyback off that. But I love that Douglas Adams just completely breaks the fourth wall there. He goes full meta, and he's like, look, I'm bored of writing about Arthur flying. I'm sure you're bored about reading about it. And I'm sure you're sick of this romance shit. Here's some Marvin stuff. And like,
Marvin. Yeah.
yeah, I told you that this was coming earlier in the book when I was like, hey, if you don't want to read a romance bit, then like just skip to the parts with Marvin. They start on this page.
I mean, it actually has the best quality of the entire series, which is like one of my favorite things about the series is like the parts when he makes the book actually feel like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Where you
Totally.
entire like encyclopedia section about like some random ass like species or whatever.
Oh yeah. So
And I
good.
forget their name. You seem like really well like versed with this, so you probably remember the name. Like the ultra fighty species that just wanted to like fight everyone else all the time.
Oh, Frank, what were those guys? There's a... God, I can't remember off the top of my head.
You know the ones I'm talking about, right?
Yes,
Like,
I know what you're talking about.
Put in a room with a sack of potatoes.
Yes. Yeah. Their most notable line is the one with the potatoes. Oh my God. so good. And yeah, I love everything about that. Just
And
every
so
once
cool.
in a
And
while,
it's
just
so-
like
and
the plot can
pattern's
wait.
so cool, right? Like there's dust that surrounds cricket, which prevents them from seeing.
Wait,
the
I
universe.
got it.
But this dust was like the supercomputer that was beaten up for telling them that you shouldn't destroy the universe.
It's the stylastic armor fiends of Striterax.
Armor fields.
Yes, those guys. I love those guys.
Yep.
So good.
Their story, his little tangent on those people perfectly encapsulates, like, you know, I don't know, our election that just happened. You know, like it's like that little metaphor is so good. And the whole book is full of them.
See, and Shiv, you pointed in your debate to probably my favorite thing about Douglas Adams' writing, because I'm constantly immersed in like philosophy, and I love that he just like makes up these crazy concepts of things, and if you think about, if like you can just take them as entertainment, like that's totally okay, but if you take them and you think about them for much longer, they don't make any sense, but they make you contemplate why they don't make any sense. Like the one that really got me was he has a line that's something along the lines of like, they imagine like the planet of cricket didn't know what it was like to be alone in the universe. Imagine what it's like to never even know what alone means. And I was like, oh, can we even do that? And I like went down this whole spiral of like, no, we can't, like, because no child can just survive on its own. Like you need some kind of figure to raise you in some sense, whether that's like an ape or a human, it doesn't matter. Like Tarzan wasn't even by themselves. So like he has these things of like, you could just take that line and run and it's really hilarious and fun. But if you sit and think about it, you like go into your head of like, wait a second, that doesn't work. And here's why it doesn't work. And I think Douglas meant me to think that.
I mean,
It's beautiful.
like when I was a teenager, I spent an extraordinarily long amount of time thinking about like the whole concept of you cannot know the answer unless you know the question. Or you cannot, like, the question sometimes matters more than the answer.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
yeah.
that entire concept kind of blew my mind for like years.
Mm-hmm.
It still does. I mean, I think people, a lot of the time, they're asking a question. They don't even know what they actually are trying to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know that until they get an answer and they don't like it. And they're like, wait, that's not what I was looking for. Let me think about another way to ask that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you can boil so much in life down to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to do this, but I have to like sort of like bounce early.
Oh,
Shenanigans.
that's okay.
Is that all right? I'm sorry because like I have another podcast I'm supposed to do at 8 o'clock. So
No.
No worries.
Well,
Yeah,
you should
we
tell
can-
us where we can find you and
Yeah,
what you're
plug
working
all
on
your
next.
stuff, man.
well, like I said, I'm working on the novel. You can find my stuff on my website. It's like my name, shivramdas.net. And you can, these days I usually use Blue Sky. So it's like name Shiv at Blue Sky. You can find me if you want to follow. I post about my work. I post about all kinds of stuff actually.
Okay.
Cool.
And
Hell yeah.
And
well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on, Shiv, and thank
Yes,
you for
thank you.
debating life, the universe, and everything.
Yes.
I'm assuming you liked it.
I loved it. I loved it.
All right.
I love every book in that series except the one called for one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
that one's harder to read.
because I know you're into it, Shiv, what do people need to know about cricket when they read this book? Especially if they know nothing about cricket, the sport.
Oh Lord. Well, you should
Like,
know
never
that
mind
the
the other
announcers
podcast.
are actually like that. Like he has these
Oh my
really
God.
weird staid announcers, and they are actually like that if you watch it.
When a Chesterfield sofa spontaneously appears on
yes.
the
Oh
the
my
cricket pitch.
So fun. No,
Oh my god, it's so
it's
good.
not Chesterfield. It's whatever Huddlesfield.
That's fantastic to know.
Yeah. I've heard two guys argue about whether it's slightly shady or slightly sunny for 10 whole minutes while play went on.
Yeah, and I don't think I gave cricket enough of a chance. I think I need to get
It's a wild
Just
sport. And
high as balls and just watch a cricket
Yeah.
match for some hours.
and it's like baseball but fun.
It is pretty silly. I'm
I
in.
love that. Well, thank you, Shiv, and we will send everyone your way. Check out Shiv Ramdas's books. He's fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And
man.
Thank
debating
you
this
so
week.
much. A
Yeah.
real joy to have you.
It's a
Cheers.
pleasure. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, Shiv. Goodbye.
Thank you, Shiv.
Bye. See you, Colin.
Ah. And then there were 3.
And then number
Yeah.
3.
I don't know if we're.
Yeah. So what
Should we-
else? What else?
Oh,
do we
man.
want to
Yeah, what
say
else?
about?
I
Yeah,
could
I'm
open.
sure you have words.
Oh, I could open table about this book for a while.
Let's go.
For
let's
exactly. For
I've
exactly.
got
that.
yay much whiskey left to get out of this glass, so
Indeed.
For exactly that reason. Like, we're sorry to lose Shiv, but he's awesome. Please go read his
Yeah.
books. Authors are busy. Clayton knows all about that. Colin knows all about that.
Indeed. I have to bounce early too. So
how dare you?
Just playing. Okay.
Um,
what?
Own show.
So I will say, I do really think Douglas Adams is in his element when he introduces those just crazy, funky concepts that you have to like think about. And when you think about them, you're like, that makes no sense. But in the nonsensicalness, you find sense. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I really don't think I am. And I
don't
also-
know, yeah.
This book reminded me of why there's an essay I want to eventually write. Please don't steal this idea, any listeners.
Everybody steal it, please.
You
Why-
have full permission to steal it.
why fantasy and science fiction is the best introduction for students to philosophy, because it makes you like get rid of this whole immediate satisfaction concept. Like, Douglas Adams' books are like, I don't know what's going on, but I will. I eventually will. It's okay. Just keep reading. Just
Mhm.
keep reading through all the tangents. And I think science fiction like his and fantasy do that better than any other fictional genre. And you need that skill for philosophy, because a lot of the times you're just reading through all this. They have this flowery language that oftentimes is like kind of fluff leading to the actual point. And you just have to keep going and then be like, oh, that's what they meant. And I really love how Douglas does that, but I don't know what y'all think.
Well, yeah, no, I can agree with that. Like, if anybody's read like Plato's Symposium, it's a bunch of different like stories about like Greek gods and impossible shit happening to illustrate moral points and whatever, or say something about love and humanity or whatever. I think that degree of separation from reality makes it easier to focus on like the actual philosophical thing being presented.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, that's like one of the main things I always talk about when people ask, like, oh, why do you write horror? Why do you read horror? It's for a similar reason. Like, I think it's easier to process dark things, terrible things, whatever you might be working through in a horror movie, whatever the theme might be. If you attach it to a monster, or you attach it to some folklore or mythology, that can be really helpful way to like create that degree of separation, like you're saying. So I agree with that as well.
Yeah, and just teach the skill of persisting through unknowing. Like, that's the one thing I really think it does amazingly. I don't get it right now, but that's okay. That's the point. And I struggle teaching Plato in that same essence, where I have students who are like, well, they'll read 4 sentences and be like, I don't get it. And I'm like, you're not supposed to yet. like
You have to keep going.
You will, but you have to keep going. There's no, like, I can't just give you the answer. You don't get it yet. That's the point. You will. Colin, sorry.
Oh no, to your point, I think I want to read one page from the book that is exactly what you said.
Hell yes.
If that's cool.
Yeah, do it.
Please.
So they are on the ship and they watch this like whatever augmented reality about the history, and Arthur and Ford completely ignore it. But like as the reader, we understand it. We get the important points that they're completely missing. And so Slutty Bart Fast, he says, overnight, the whole population of Cricket was transformed from being charming, delightful, intelligent, whimsical, ordinary people into charming, delightful, intelligent, whimsical, manic xenophobes. The idea of a universe didn't fit into their world picture, so to speak. They simply couldn't cope with it. And so, charmingly, delightfully, intelligently, whimsical, if you like, they decided to destroy it.
Yeah. I love how they got,
And which is such fantastic philosophy when you really want to think about it. But that's immediately followed with him saying, "What's the matter now?" "I don't like this wine very much," said Arthur, sniffing it. "Well, send it back. It's all part of the mathematics of it." Arthur did so. He didn't like the topography of the waiter's smile, but he never liked graphs anyway.
God.
And then the first and last line of this book are also like just absolute mic drop moments that are so brilliant and are not explained at all because you just have to enjoy them.
Yeah.
Well,
you create your own explanations for everything in this book, and I think Shiv did say that really well. Like, this book is about the journey, but it's even larger than that. You have to zoom out, and it's about the futility of the journey.
Yeah, it's about how the journey does not matter at all.
Right, and then you zoom out even further from that, and it's about how like that's actually a good thing. That's like actually a form of like optimism. I find when I read these books, I find that the whimsical nature of them is really just a beautiful like escape from anything you could possibly want to escape from.
Yeah, it's like nihilism and or atheism done properly, and not the edgy college version of those things.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I mean-
positive nihilism, I think, is there. It's along the lines of, I believe it's Mahayana Buddhism, which
That is what you've said on the show before.
I
about
have.
this exact topic.
I bring it up before. Every time we talk about Hitchhiker's Guide, I bring up Mahayana Buddhism, and it's because it's the sect of Buddhism that is very focused on that. Like, yeah, life is futile, but that shouldn't bring you down. That should make you realize that every action you take really doesn't matter. So, like, make the most of them. That's a very, very, very like trivial boiling down of one of the most complex Eastern religions in the world. But so don't take it with a grain of salt what I say, but I do always get reminded of that when I read these books.
Yeah. I love how
but
they
it's-
just
it's-
get to space and they're like, it'll have to go. Oh,
Colin,
Yeah, I mean there is justification for it. Like it's not there is like a morality. There is like you should be nice to one another. And people who aren't nice to one another, they really suck to be around.
yeah.
There's
Well-
like because what happens is that like a lot of the random tangents in the book, they do become important. They're actually essential to what happens later. So Marvin sitting in a pile of mud on this planet alone is like, why are we reading this that has nothing to do with the story? And then actually he's the person who saves the universe and is completely knowledgeable about that fact and really resents it.
He actually
Yeah.
saves the universe probably more than anyone else in this series.
He
And
does.
Yeah, it's
it's
incredible.
only because he doesn't want to.
I'm pretty sure Marvin is probably like the entire Marvin and Back to the Future are like the entire inspiration for Rick and Morty.
I think that's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty big inspirations for sure.
to your
I-
point though, Colin, like, oh, sorry, Clay, you finish.
Oh, and I was just gonna say, Marvin is really brilliant as a character because he's the one character who understands that what would really be best for the universe is if just everybody perished. But because he wants that so bad and his purpose is to be miserable, it can never be.
which is probably the philosophical and like religious point I really disagree with these books on, but I appreciate the full send that they have with Marvin, and I like it.
Yeah, that's a literary full send if I've
A
ever seen
literary
one.
full send. I will never
Beautiful.
agree with Marvin's philosophy that it would all just be better if people weren't around because of my personal philosophy. But what I want to point to with what Colin said is and what Shiv brought up is that I don't think and I forget names, so please remind me, Jeremy, if you remember, the guy that is going around insulting the entire universe in alphabetical order.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Him.
That guy. He's
Refer
not
back earlier if you want to know.
Yeah, he's not just a precursor to the whole cricket planet. He's also, I think, I think the point Douglas was making is like there's different kinds of this resentment and this kind of hatefulness, and some of them are objectively worse than others. Like that guy is definitely not a good person. He's going around and just calling everyone jerks because he's bored and he's like lost hope in the universe. But that's way better than the planet that's like, nope, we're just gonna kill everything but us.
Yeah, that's
Like,
Wowbagger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Wowbagger.
Wowbagger. Like
Yep.
he is
That
he is
guy.
100% not as awful as Cricket. Take in mind, I haven't finished the book 100%. I'm like 3/4 of the way through. So if I'm proven
Oh
wrong,
my god.
please let me know. I saw, oh my gosh, I went full teacher mode. I was about to say, I saw Jeremy's hand first and then Clayton's.
Man, what a teacher this guy. I tell you what.
But
You'd think this
whoever,
guy teaches people.
whoever
So,
wants
like,
to go.
it's incredible the things that you like pick up on as you reread things, like with the immortal guy and with the people of the planet Cricket, where this sort of hateful nature, it has to kind of be invented and like thrust upon, like with the immortal Wowbagger, he was explicitly not supposed to be immortal. He just, by a fluke that has never been replicated, just became that way. And just to fill his time, he decided to be an asshole to everybody. He had to create that for himself, and the people of Cricket were pretty explicitly made to hate the rest of the universe by this particulated supercomputer in the air. So, it had to be taught. And, I think that's a weirdly hopeful meta message of the book. So, woo.
Play.
Yeah, I think so much of this whole series and this book especially is about that search for purpose and how that can become so easily misguided. Like we have Agrajag is another good example, right?
So
Like
good.
there's so many instances in this book of people adopting a purpose and it just being like, this is clearly not the way you should live your life. But Agrajag's whole purpose becomes to kill Arthur Dent, despite the fact that he has been killed like millions of times by Arthur Dent across like all these different forms.
God, that's
And
incredible.
I know, I find it really interesting. I want to just like do a little discussion of Agrajag. But I was going to ask you guys as a group, which character, which purpose of which character, I should say, do you think Douglas Adams maybe the most relates to of all the characters he has created? For example, I think it's Ford Prefect, whose basically purpose has just become to have a good time at all costs, regardless of what that means or who that might affect, or whether you do or do not create giraffes. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm going to say, I think I agree with you, but for a different reason your reason with an addition of there are several times in the book where it's very clear that Ford knows exactly what's going on. Like he's not Arthur, where Arthur kind of like blunders through a lot of the series with like this weird lucky ignorance that gets him into a lot of situations, but then also like saves him in a lot of instances. Ford wants to have a good time, but fully knows like what's going on. And I think there's a scene that I just read where they're talking about why he's like wanting to go to the party, and they're like, why do you want to go to the party so bad after everything you've just learned? And he's like trying to futilely explain that the reason he wants to go to the party is because he just learned about this like assassination planet that's just going to destroy everything. And he's like, if that's what's going to happen in the universe, of course the last thing I want to do is go to a party. But like Arthur is just fixated on the metaphor that he tries to use, and I forget what it is. It's like trying to, it's as futile as something trying to survive a supernova. I forget what it is, but it's hysterical. And he's like, why'd you choose that specific animal? He's like, stop thinking about the animal. It doesn't matter.
I know. It's like trying to do hypotheticals with my wife, whom I love, but it's just futile.
Yeah. But so I agree with you. I think that is Douglas. Douglas is like, I'm going to have a good time, but trust me, I know what's going on. Like
Yeah,
I'm very aware of what I'm satiring and what is the problem, but I just want to laugh through it.
Yeah,
there's
I think
probably
Mm,
there's
Oh,
plenty of people who probably just go through life having a good time because they aren't as self-aware. That's certainly a thing as well. And there's a level of like freedom and optimism and even nihilism in that too, if you wanted to look at it that way. But I think you're right, Travis. I think Ford is very aware of like how the universe works, how society works. And he's like, I don't care. You know,
Yeah.
he's like,
Okay.
I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm going to do it my way. And y'all can join me. You're all welcome. But like, if you're in the way, I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy.
Yeah, like I think that Ford Prefect is easily who who Douglas Adams has the most fun writing, but I'm pretty sure the person he would actually be in the story is Arthur Dent. Like Douglas Adams is he's just an Englishman who has worked in local radio, as Arthur Dent has. But it's just so fun to write a dude that's like pure chaos in every interaction he has, which becomes increasingly clear throughout the series. I think every wild idea that Douglas Adams has is indulged between Ford Prefect and Zaphod Beeblebrox. And that's that's pretty fun. But if he ever went to space, he would just be like, can I actually just have some tea?
Colin.
Hi, Colin.
I think it's Douglas Adams is Slarty Bartfast. And the reason that I choose that, I mean, I think all these characters are, aspects of Douglas Adams. Like it is kind of weird. Like Zaphod Beeblebrox is supposed to be a cool guy, and he has like this cool guy vibe, and he's like, no, baby, that's not my vibe, really. So the way he acts cool is kind of like it's aged, we could say.
Yeah.
Hey, cats, what's going on? But there's a throwaway sort of scene with Slarty Bartfast, which is it's like he's in charge of saving the universe because he sort of missed something and like was voluntold to do it, which reminds me of Clay and I being on a board making decisions where it's like you're not there, and then now you're in charge of that or something. That committee, right? And so I feel like Slutty Bartfast is just trying to herd all these cats and try and get them to do the thing they're supposed to do so that they can go back and do whatever they want. If they can just get, he's basically like the D&D party leader who's like, okay, remember how we're playing a game, guys? And like, there's this GM over here who has this whole story for us, and we need to get out of this alchemy shop where we're trying to steal this guy's shit and then just get back to the necromancer who like, that's the point of this. That's what I feel like he is.
Yeah,
Also,
he's
not
basically the NPC trying to keep the PCs on the rail.
yeah. He's
But,
the self insert of the DM. Like the DM, I've DM'd 3 long campaigns now, and I always make a self insert character that I can be in the dialogue for when it goes like way off rails. I can be like, this random character says, "Hey, maybe we should think about it this way." And everyone's like, "Oh, I think I know what we're trying to do here." So yeah, he's the self-insert DM character. But that led me to 2. I never get out of one of these episodes without making comparisons to other things. Douglas Adams does the whole time cop thing 50 times better than Loki. Like Loki gets so much praise as one of the best Disney Plus shows. I think I read the Slarty Bartfast stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is like the Time Police, but actually good.
Now, how much better than the movie Time Cop starring Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Can't say. I haven't seen it. That's a classic I missed. It flew under my radar.
How dare you?
All of Jean-Claude Van Damme's discography is I never watched. He just didn't strike my interest.
It's superb, but not because it's good.
Okay, that's what I've heard. The other thing is another comparison and kind of an insult to the thing it's compared to is I'm sorry, V.E. Schwab, if you're a listener. I doubt you are. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Like,
oh my god.
I've never.
I don't think that's V.E. Schwab.
It's not.
Nope, it's not.
Somebody quick, do some Googling.
Oh, we have.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Is
V.E.
it?
Schwab.
Oh, you just got
Not bad.
dunked
Not
on.
bad.
4 months of Barnes and Noble. I looked at that book a lot.
That's fair. That's fair.
So
That's fair.
anyway, that book, I've always tried to articulate what was my primary problem with it, and it was the character of Addie LaRue doesn't gets this power of time travel and immortality and doesn't really change for the good or the worse. And reading this, I was like,
She doesn't time travel, does she?
no, she's immortal though.
But she's immortal, yeah.
She's
You just
immortal
sort of
And it takes
exist
place over
across
centuries.
time.
over centuries
Yeah.
of time. And so these
Mhm.
books, you see a lot of immortal characters and time traveling characters, and most of them change for the worse. But I think that's so much better than just no change at all. Like, you have eternity, literal eternity, and you have a character who just ends where she began, with revenge, as opposed to Douglas Adams, who has these immortal characters who are they get so sick of the futility of the universe that they just become jerks. And I'm like, that is a much better arc done in 2 chapters than this entire book I saw. And maybe I'm missing the point of Addie LaRue, but I just did not see growth in that. And I'm always playing this comparison game.
Yeah, that's
Harsh.
fine. Whatever the point is of Addie LaRue, that's fine to miss it, I think.
Yeah. Well, I saw Colin first and then Clay.
There you go.
That is the right order. I agree totally. And in Altered Carbon, those characters are similar. Well, they have Methuselahs. Like there's some of these really rich people who can afford to be immortal and are re-sleeved in new bodies throughout their lives, they've lived for centuries. And they're referred to sometimes as Methuselahs. And they have beautiful young bodies always. But it's in the eyes that you see this terrible vampiric deadness of the soul. And I was thinking about that when I was reading this Douglas Adams book, where, you know, you have these people who are so old, and it's like, you might see that somehow, even if it's not in the physical self, like there is a difference to them substantially. And I love the way that Douglas Adams put it together. Like, you know, there's a big mission to save the universe, but Slarty Bartfast could not be more bored with the fact that he has to just get these people to this place to do one thing so that they can go back in time and everything sorts itself out a little bit better than if they don't do those things. And that's it.
Yeah. Before Clay, real quick, very Frankenstein. Like we went over that in the Frankenstein episode of like, he's not an ugly monster. The movies have messed that up for centuries. The line in the book is literally like, the thing that is missing is something in his eyes. Like people look into his eyes and they realize they're empty. There's nothing there. And that Methuselah thing, that thing that comes with the age of like, if we were to have immortality, that's probably what would be missing. Or even special effects nowadays. We call it the uncanny valley. It's always the eyes. We can perfectly recreate the face and the wrinkles and all of that. But when you look at Tarkin's eyes in Rogue One, you're like, that's not a person. Like something's wrong with that thing. But
classic Clay. Frankenstein is hot except for the eyes. Yes, Clay.
Yeah, because how could you not, right? That's something that like Joe Abercrombie does really well in the first Law trilogy, is like the conclusion of that book, everything you expect to happen literally happens. And when I first read that, I was like, the fuck? And then the second time when I really went back and thought about it, I was like, it's brilliant. Like, that's the point. If you lived as long as the wizard in that book, or some of these immortal beings in the Hitchhiker's Guide series, you couldn't help but get bored with like just history repeating itself over and over and over. And eventually, how would you not lose faith in everything? You know, that could be hard to do. It could be hard to do if you just saw people kind of do the same thing over and over and over and over, you know?
Yeah, Baez is the wizard's name. And
Baez, thank you.
Baez.
It's been a while.
And how long has that been a theme in literature? I mean, like, I'm sorry to always bring in philosophy and my life of theology as well, but like, I'm just reading through the Old Testament right now, and whether or not you believe it's true or whether or not you believe it's like literature, it's the same theme. Like, that's what happens. God's people like are told what's right and true and good, like worship this God, and then they constantly just rotate through, like, and the judges, even like you read the Old Testament judges, they're just a spiral downwards into like worse and worse and worse people that just keep breaking the law. And like, to imagine being God in that sense, or by like a Baez character, someone who is immortally living through this descent, and being like, a new prophet comes along and a new judge, and they're like, hey, I'm the leader that's gonna like bring us back to be good, godly people. You'd be like, no, you're not. I've seen 7 of you at this point. Like, I know what's gonna happen at the end of this story.
So was the guy 90 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, you guys do this every 80, 90 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been here for 10,000 years.
Exactly.
It's like, God, the Old Testament is so bananas and so good.
I love it. But yeah, that's the bias of it, is like, imagine being God or some immortal being that's overseeing that, and someone comes along that's like Solomon and is like, hey, I got it. I'm your homie now. You're just like, okay, that's what Saul said. and David, or I'm getting out of order there, but that's what they've all said. Let's see if you do it. Oh, you didn't? Yeah, I'm not surprised. Jeremy.
Yeah. So, like, I love how the Hitchhiker's Guide makes a point of like saying, yeah, most immortal beings are born with like they know how to cope with immortality, so they're like fine to be around. But then this one guy just doesn't know how to cope with it, and he's just trying to find movies that he hasn't watched 10,000 goddamn times.
Yes.
It's incredible.
He's so benign. Like he's so right. I mean, he could be the evilest person who's ever lived, but he chooses to keep watching these movies and doing this insane, life story for himself. It's like, whatever, man.
The line that's like, wake me up when we get to the hour that I haven't watched 3 million times. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna nap, but when I come to that scene, just wake me up.
Yeah, because it's the perfect tie-in from the previous book is Arthur Dent screaming himself awake as he does every morning for the past several years to his own voice alone in a cave, and then this alien coming about and insulting him. And then we learn about the alien and his backstory in the next chapter. And then there's this beautiful explanation of the stars in the sky and how gorgeous, this universe is. And then Bagger couldn't be more bored with that fact and has the computer wake him up at that scene in that movie.
Play.
Yeah. I love everything you guys are saying because it was the point I was going to bring up too. Before we got on this more optimistic bent, fueled by Douglas Adams, we were talking about sort of the dismal side of that glimpse of eternity type story, and Douglas Adams does a really nice job of making it funny, making it optimistic, and making it like real too. Like it doesn't matter how crazy the scenario is, like that guy watching the movies that he's seen a million times feels so real to me. Because like I lived in a camper in CQ, Washington with no internet.
Hell yeah.
And I did have a disc case and I was watching, I don't know how many times I've seen Braveheart. Like I definitely don't like it anymore, but I'll keep watching it because it's the most entertaining movie I have.
I get it. I've seen Speed Racer more times than I can count.
Yeah, that's fair. And I've also seen like 2 seasons of Avatar, like more times than anyone should.
Sure.
But it's the point is he does a really good job of like creating realistic characters in absurd circumstances. And it's a joyride to go on. And it's another way to look at that. Like Jeremy said, coping with eternity.
Yeah. That's another thought I had while reading it, of like a theological thought of oh no, please don't tell me I lost it. This happens to me all the time. You were just talking about coping.
Don't lose it. You can do it. I flippin' believe in you.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
You can do it.
Maybe not.
Retrace mental steps.
It all relates back to that, obviously.
I do. One of the other tangents that's great. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it.
Yes.
Go.
Do it.
It's Douglas Adams put into words more efficiently than I've ever heard like a Christian apologist put into words. The fact that like we can't imagine heaven. Like this is a thing that I talk to my students about all the time. I'm like, try and imagine it, and they're like, well, I think it's like these like beautiful green fields and I'm doing the sport that I love the most. And I'm like, yeah. And how many days would it take before you're bored of playing football for eternity? And they're like, I don't know, like 7. And I'm
6,
like 7.
yeah.
That's not heaven. Like that's not eternal happiness. And like he put into words that whole concept of like, if you truly had eternity with the things that you have on earth, it wouldn't take very long before you were just like, I'm done with this. Like it has to be more than that.
Yeah.
And so there's like no way we can possibly actually imagine what the Christian conception of heaven is because it's not something here, because we just get bored. We would, like, I can imagine my favorite day is like sitting with my wife in a really nice, tranquil environment, reading a book, having a conversation with her once in a while, eating a really good meal. How many days could I do that before I was like, I'm really sick of reading and eating good meals in this tranquil environment? Like, probably not that many before I was like, I want to do something else. I want some variety in my life. You know, that was my thought. But Colin, you had something.
Just another great character. It's kind of a brilliant decision to deal with the most deadly civilization that's ever existed, to just surround them with a cloud of pocket of time, a pocket universe, as we like to say in D&D. And then they're just, time moves differently, so we don't have to deal with them. And then that's like a brilliant conception by this completely ridiculous sandal-wearing politician guy 20 billion years in the past, who comes up with that while he's in between, like, he spits out his drink and he's like, they're like, is this alcohol in this? And then the attendant is like, no, there isn't any. And he's like, well, put some in it. That is just like a ridiculous dude having a ridiculous time, and his decisions change the entire universe for the better, but also have this horrible consequence because it's just putting off this horrible thing. It's like, I just identify with that whole chapter.
That, and that the best invisibility shield is just making it other people's problem.
Yeah, an explanation.
Yes.
I loved other people's
somebody else's
problem field was somebody else's problem field was so clever.
I reference that every single day. Whenever I see it happening in real life, I can't think of anything else. But I'm like, I don't actually see that. And then there it is.
It's somebody else's problem.
That's someone else's problem right there.
The Hitchhiker's Guide, it's better than the Encyclopedia Galactica because it's slightly shorter and slightly cheaper.
Right.
Right. And then there's somebody else's problem field is the same thing. Like, he talks about how it could be an invisibility field and all the things you can do with that, but it's a lot less energy to just make it somebody else's problem.
It's as good as
and that's
being
why it's so common,
but way easier.
On that, I really think we can end with this whole podcast is just somebody else's problem.
That's true.
And the other thing that
I can't really argue with that, yeah.
I think I permanently want fixed on my desk, or maybe we should permanently be fixed on this podcast, is the plaque that's on the Hitchhiker's Guide editor's desk of missing presumed Fed.
Yes.
I think that is fantastic. And I hope Shiv is missing presumed Fed. I hope he's gotten a meal for his next meeting. We're very happy to have him on. But Colin has one more point before we wrap up.
Oh my God.
I want to read this one line for the book, which I know Shiv probably absolutely was killed by it. And it is this: of all the races in the galaxy, only the English could possibly revive the memory of the most horrific wars ever to sunder the universe and transform it into what I'm afraid is generally regarded as an incomprehensibly dull and pointless game.
Oh my God. It's so good.
Well, with that, we need to rate this thing, and we don't have Shiv here, but he loved it, and we will put his links and such in the bio of this thing. I hope so. I'm not sure. I guess I don't do the bios, so
let's assume that it will happen.
Let's assume. If not, rewind the video and find where he tells you where to find him. And please go read his books. Please go follow his Twitters, all of them. And yeah, support the man. He's a great author. We appreciate him coming on the show. But Jeremy, what do you think? What are you giving a rating for life, the universe, and everything?
My goodness.
And to be clear, if you're a new listener, our rating system is completely chaotic. It is based just on how many drinks or whatever you choose to substitute for drinks do you need to enjoy this particular book, Life, the Universe, and Everything, to the fullest extent.
Thank you,
Yes.
Clayton. I'm doing a bad job as a host. Also, I just
You're
noticed
killing it.
Just noticed your Gengar hat, and that's fantastic.
Hey, yeah, me too. I just noticed that was sick. That's dope.
All right. Jeremy, how many drinks does it take to enjoy life, the universe, and everything?
Now, of course, I started reading this book series when I was but a boy. And when I say I started reading, I started listening to it on very long road trips when my father would just play the audiobook read by Douglas Adams while we were driving and get through several books on our way to Minnesota or Missouri. So technically, I know for a fact that I don't need anything to get through these books because they're incredible. And I've read them several times before I was even old enough to drink and also before I drank. So those are two different ages. Let's just be realistic.
All right.
Now, I don't have to, but I get to drink about a quarter bottle of whiskey on my way through this book. It's great. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Colin.
I'm trying to find the drink that he has in his bag that he left in Greece and that spontaneously reappears.
Oh, that was a Greek wine, wasn't it?
Was it a Greek wine?
I think so. Either that or it was like an aperitif or something.
But you can certainly, I would love a pan-galactic gargle-blaster to accompany
Naturally,
this.
yes.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised I don't think it's actually in the book, surprisingly.
No.
But it's the old go-to. And just something, there is a point in the book where Zaphod has a couple drinks through both heads, and there's funny lines about heading off the first drink at the pass with the second one to then enhance his what Trillian understands immediately as depression. So just a nice, I feel like a good fizzy drink here and there, along with some mellow drinks, like some bourbon. Just have a nice couple glass each time you read a couple chapters in your lounge chair.
All right.
Hell yes.
Clayton, what do you got?
Yeah. I think I agree with the general sentiment of the room. This is kind of like one I want to drink scotch with on the rocks, like something I can sip and enjoy, and just sort of like laugh with, I guess. This book is a really fun trip for me every time. All the Hitchhikers guidebooks are. So something I can just sort of enjoy on a journey, I would say. One glass per reading.
Per reading, yeah.
So depending on how how fast you read, or how long you read. If you read for like 2 hours,
Or
you can
how
have
fast
2
you
glasses.
drink, you know?
1 glass an hour while reading throughout the book.
I'm
Optimal enjoyment.
Generally in agreement with y'all. I think I would do I think as soon as we got to the hilarious opener example of the man who is insulting the universe in alphabetical order, I'd pour myself a nice glass of bourbon, enjoy that for a while, probably get a second one in by the end of the book, but I'm sipping slow. And then I would sober up when I finished it and be contemplating life, the universe, and everything, and go maybe have some communion wine.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd want my answers, I'd want my answers. But that would be my rating. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.
And I think I'm going to amend my answers somewhat.
Oh.
Every time there's like an entry from the guide about some random thing, just take a good long contemplative sip. Just
like
like,
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
wow, holy shit, that's some good shit right there. Yeah, motherfucker, yeah.
I like it. I think that is 100% a great
I had too
rating
much
system.
whiskey for this episode.
No such thing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where you want to end, really.
Life, the Universe, and Everything by Douglas Adams. Great third book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Fermented Fiction. As always, I have been one of your hosts, Travis from Olam.
I've been Clay from Olam.
I've been a third guy, Jeremy. I'm pretty sure.
And I'm Colin Poynton.
And we are very happy for all of our listeners coming on every week. Please follow us on all the things. Do we need to say those things, or will people know?
Yeah, you can just say all the things, I think.
Say the
Okay,
things.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just follow
man.
us on all the things, which for me is 0 things. I don't have any of the things, but these lovely people with me have the things. So follow them. Find them on the stuff.
We do have an event coming up. Both Clay and I, plus a bunch of other awesome authors, are going to be at the Central Seattle Library downtown on November 21st. It is a Cascade Writers event along with Horror Writers Association Seattle chapter. And we're going to have a bunch of horror folks there who a lot of them also have written sci-fi, fantasy, literary genres and are amazing. So November 21st, 7 p.m., I believe is the time. Double check that. You can RSVP on the Seattle Public Library website. But that's where we're going to be. You can buy our books and have a good time. It's definitely going to be a great time. Everyone, I know a lot of people are going to be there and they're all great. And
All
it's
right.
free.
Sick.
This is true.
Our next episode will be talking about the horror film Long Legs with Clayton as the debater. Please join us then. But until then, assume that we are missing, presumed fed.
Hell
Bye,
yeah.
everybody.
We're
Hey,
definitely
everybody, have a
fermenting.
nice nano. It's so good.